And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. And we have video this time. What a time. This is great. We're elevating the show. Just a reminder for the make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you listen to it there, or if you want to start watching, because hopefully this will be up on YouTube. So we'll also have our podcast up on YouTube. You can head over to the Hockey Princess podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want to be on an episode, want to give us a correction, want us to talk about something in particular, you can send us a message on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, email, comment on one of our eventual YouTube videos, and we'll talk about it. This is fun. I like having video. This is
You like being on video, huh? Okay.
This is fun. Some NHL, we'll get into some NHL stuff. First of all, there is for those who don't know, there is a lawsuit. There has been an ongoing lawsuit regarding the Chicago Blackhawks. We're really not going to talk about it on this podcast, just because we don't want to, and it's necessary for us to comment
about
on
the
it.
Second one. So, if you need information on it, you can GTS that, as the kids say.
But we just wanted to touch on it because there has been more progress, but we're not going to really talk about it because we don't need to talk about it. After that, some more NHL stuff outside of the Blackhawk world. Andrei Vasilevsky is projected to hopefully be back in net come mid-December-ish. Another goaltender situation, Freddie Anderson who is a goaltender for the Carolina Hurricanes, has announced that he is going to be out indefinitely due to a blood clot issue. We wish him all the best because that sounds scary. So right now, Yaroslav Halak is on a free agency tryout situation with Carolina. Peter Kuchikov is still called up to the Carolina Hurricanes. He has not been in Syracuse where he was originally assigned. So right now they've still got 3 goaltenders kind of in the mix. Ronta is still, of course, there in Carolina, but they're figuring stuff out over in Carolina. Another one, Backstrom of the Washington Capitals, retired but didn't retire, but kind of retired. He is going to be out indefinitely, again, due to ongoing issues. He had a left hip resurfacing surgery, I believe this past summer again. And there's still issues. Still wish him the best, because that also, like Freddie Anderson, sounds scary and gross and really painful.
Yeah, so what I heard is he won't be back this year. So odds are good he won't be back, period, but he's getting paid. So that's nice.
Exactly. So that is pretty much our outside of the Blackhawks. Now, inside the Blackhawks, do you have an Blackhawks?
Well, I would like to, since how about one more thing NHL wise? I just want it to be known to everybody that the Edmonton Oilers are 2-8-1. So that is probably your biggest story in the NHL. There will be coaches fired, general managers fired. Everybody's going to be fired soon. So, but that was it. Sorry.
But on the bright side, I mean, look at Anaheim right now. My goodness. I love the chaos that the beginning of the season has given us. I would also like it to be known that, some people did not agree with my initial predictions regarding certain Canadian teams. And as of right now, the Montreal Canadiens are doing better than the Ottawa Senators. And so as of right now, I have still predicted correctly. Who knows? This could bite me in the butt come February, but initially, Montreal's doing better, and that's what matters.
Yes.
Has San Jose hasn't won yet, though, right? See,
Still,
that's a
San Jose
huge
still
one.
has not won a game.
That was
They
expected, though. I mean, I
well
feel
not
bad for.
expected to their level of losing games 11-1 and 10-1. That's all pretty bad.
Yeah,
Um, I would assume their coach will get fired just because it's one thing to be like us last year and just lose a lot. It's another thing to be blown out all the time, especially when, half of those games are at home and you're getting blown out.
yeah,
Some point in time, somebody's got to pay for all that.
true that. Um, all right. Anything more on the NHL world?
I don't think so. If I remember it, I'll just butt in again.
That's fair. That's fair. Little bit of Rockford news. Marcel and Colton Dock are officially out of the medical situations that they were in. They're both now back to being healthy. Doc has gotten plenty of ice time this past week and has looked great. Two main games from this past week. Some notes on the highlights from the November 4th, this past Saturday game. Doc had plenty of time on the ice. It seemed like when anything good happened, he was on the ice. And I personally just loved that Doc was always standing in front of the net, because then that gives me the hope that eventually I get to watch somebody else aside from Corey Perry stand in front of the net all the time. And we love that. Sorella also looked good. A lot of veteran presence, but like veterans that they signed in the offseason, no one that's really a part of the rebuild, which was expected because you've got a lot of guys who are AHL players for their career, and then a lot of guys who, this is their first year being in Rockford. So we kind of knew that going in. EDM played a decent, he was originally set to play with Nolan Allen. He played a decent amount with Philip Roos as well, which made sense because I think Phillips got called back that night, but I don't think he ended up playing Saturday with the Ice Hogs, so it makes sense that EDM is going to play a little bit of both. A little bit of a rocky game for EDM. He was definitely in front of Stauber when the opposing team scored a couple of times and really struggled to, shut down the other team, but we still love him and he's still growing.
Sure do.
The next game, Comesso looked great. He has had an amazing start to the beginning of the season, which we love that because he is a big portion and a big part of the rebuild in terms of goaltending, in terms of like their long-term plan. A lot of Doc in front of the net. Crevier and Ryder Rolston were healthy scratched for that game, which I thought was interesting, but there's a lot of people down in Rockford and it's a long season.
Yeah, they've got a lot of veteran forwards. So, I don't know exactly why that was, and I don't know why Creature got benched, but Creature's still just learning. That's just kind of the way it is.
That's about it for Rockford in particular. We've got some prospect stuff, a lot of quality prospect stuff this past week. As I tell crusty old guy frequently, Misiak continues to just look great, and I love it. He's definitely a favorite of mine so far from what I've seen. As of when I took these notes yesterday, 18 points in 16 games, which is, I know people are going to say, but it's juniors. That's still impressive. To be more than a point a game is still impressive, I think, in, whatever league you're playing in. That's still great.
Yes, it is.
Minnesota, Rinzel had a great game against the UMD Bulldogs. But it was definitely a tough game because both teams looked great. But Rinzel definitely shined during that game. Another one that is doing so well is Gavin Hayes of the Flint Firebirds. Very excited for this Friday where the Flint Firebirds are playing the Erie Otters. So it's Gavin Hayes versus Martin Misiak. I will be watching because clearly I have nothing else to do and I'm excited. um, Gavin Hayes also 15 points in 13 games played, which is also incredible because Gavin Hayes I know is, or at least not on average. He's not averaging like on their top 6. Like he's not, or he might be. I know he's not on the top line. Had 2 goals against, I think I'm pronouncing this town's name correctly, Mississauga. I apologize.
Got me.
if
Don't ask me to
it's
pronounce anything.
But is just consistently lighting it up in the OHL, which gives me the excitement and the hope because all I want 3 years from now is Gavin Hayes, Paul Ludwinski, and Samuel Savoie on the same line, which in case you're sick of me saying it, I will probably say it at least once a week because I can't wait for that to be our third line. NASCAR, great game against Wisconsin, which brings me to we will be having a double feature this week because I will be going to Ann Arbor, Michigan to see NASCAR.
That's it. You're disowned.
Sorry, Chris, the old guy, is not a big fan of Michigan. So
No,
I
he
will
is
be
not.
seeing NASCAR versus Oliver Moore and Sam Renzel. So we'll have a full prospect report after that game, hence the double feature. It will not be an hour long, but I definitely thought, it would be good to have another episode. And also, I haven't been to a college hockey game before. So I'm just going to have my opinions on that, and I'm super excited for it. But NASCAR looked great against Wisconsin. Moorhead, I think it was against Duluth, and it seemed like every broadcaster or any person with the Blackhawks was retweeting and the same highlight of Moore going
Well, it could
top.
have been because there was only one highlight, but go on.
Hey, a highlight is a highlight. We really didn't have any highlights last season, so I'm happy to watch any hockey highlight that's going to be somewhat associated with us. But Moore still consistently looks great in Minnesota. Very excited to see him this week as well. And our last prospect report for Paul Ludwinski, he is at 12 points in 12 games played, which is impressive. You like to see it. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the top prospects to look out for in terms of right now and what he's doing this season. I think definitely Misiak, Hayes, and Ludwinski are always at like the forefront of who I'm looking at in terms of video and footage. But yeah, that's prospects. That's Rockford. Do you have anything, crusty old guy?
I think you have covered the prospects pretty nicely. So I don't think there's any need for me to go into it any further.
Nice. We have some questions. You want to do questions before we start talking about the game?
Let's do questions.
Let's do questions. So we're breaking it up because we've got quite a few questions now, which I thank you all for giving us the questions. But we're gonna do a couple each week until we get an overwhelming amount, and then I'll make more TikTok videos explaining the questions. So our first question that we've gotten a couple of times from people is, what is icing?
What is icing? Well, that's basically after you make a cake, you then put the icing on it, and that is called icing.
There you go.
Well, you probably need your little board. But icing is basically if you are in your own end, which is called the defensive end, and if you shoot the puck all the way down to the other end without your guy getting there first, it is then called icing. And then after the icing, your team is not allowed to make a player change, so they can't line change. The other team can line change, and they can also pick which side they would like to take the draw from. But it's basically put in place so at any little bit of trouble, somebody just doesn't shoot the puck all the way down to the other end. So that's the main reasoning for it. So
Makes
basically,
sense.
anybody who's skating around in their own end, they can't shoot it all the way to the other end. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody.
I
Does
would
that make
like to
sense to
add,
you, Hockey
no,
Princess? You have a
it makes
question?
perfect sense. No, I would like to add,
Okay.
when a team is on the penalty kill, though, there is no,
Yes. There is no icing. We call that the Gretzky rule.
I don't think I know this story.
I believe it wasn't always that you were allowed to ice it during the power play. I will
Mm,
have to check back on that.
we'll
Or
get that.
maybe, some of our followers can correct me. But I don't think at all times you were allowed to, I think you weren't allowed to ice the puck, but then it just people would score too frequently, so they knocked that out.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So hopefully that explained it.
Makes sense to me.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Second one that we really haven't gotten, I just, got a video sent to me about this situation and I was like, wait, this would be a cool thing to explain to people, even though it happens rarely. What is an e-bug?
What is an e-bug? Do you want to handle that one? I think you've done a little research on it.
I think I haven't done research recently. It was just after the Scott Foster situation that I was like, okay, I need to understand this because I think that was the first, or at least that I remember, that was the first main one that happened to the Blackhawks.
Yeah, that was the first main one that happened to the Blackhawks, and it took Brent Seabrook's 1,000th game and made it not about Brent Seabrook,
What
and it
about,
made it about Scott Foster, your local accountant slash goaltender.
we love it.
So, I don't know if you want to explain that.
I can explain, or at least the part that I understand.
Go ahead.
So, each team, you have two goaltenders. You've got the guy in the net, and then your backup on the bench. Then there is one e-bug, an emergency goaltender that could be playing for either team. He's not he's not a salaried player for either team. He's there, he is Switzerland. That, for either team, if something happens where the guy in the net gets injured, and then the backup also can't finish the game, then the emergency goaltender then goes in and plays for them, but he can go for either team.
Yes, and I figured out what e-bug stands for.
What is
It's emergency backup goaltender.
emergency backup goaltender? Perfect.
So, but yeah, that's the main part is he can go in for either team. So, it's only happened a couple of times. It's usually pretty entertaining for the fans.
Yeah.
So, I have yet to really seen it where it wasn't the home team that the e-bug went in for.
Interesting.
I can't remember. I'll have to pose that
I know
question to
Carolina
people.
had one,
But I
but
thought
it
that
was
was
in
for Carolina, though,
Yeah.
when they were at home. I'm saying I don't know if a road team has had the e-bug, but I'll double check that. There's a lot of stuff I'm just throwing out there, I'm not positive on.
We don't claim to be. This is just how we ramble, and we decided to record
Yes.
it. Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. There's definitely a lot of videos, especially from the Scott Foster one. I know Carolina had one a little bit after that. My main thing is like, do we know, how does one become an e-bug? Because you're neutral. So are you contacted and like somewhat contracted through the league? Is it the home team?
It's the home team that supplies it,
Okay.
and it's basically, it's beer league guys who can then be there. So that's the main thing, is you have to sit there through the whole game. It's not like you get a ticket to the game or anything either. You kind of just hang out in the locker room.
Yeah.
So I can't believe that they're paid. So, for free, you're taking your time just doing that. But yeah, that's usually something that goes through, like the Blackhawks or anybody usually has a good amount of discussions with local rinks. And the hockey community is very tight. There's hockey players still play to like when they're 60 and they play in silly little beer leagues, as they call them, and everything. So I would assume it's something you sign up for, and then there must be a process of saying, okay, we'll take these guys or whatever, and they leave it at that.
Makes sense.
So I am not positive of that, but that's what I would assume is the procedure. But then you're gonna have to sign up for X amount of games.
Makes sense.
And again, that's taking a lot out of your evening. But for the crazy, crazy chance that you can go in and get lit up by NHL players,
Yeah.
So.
All right. All right. Should we get into Blackhawk hockey now?
Let's get into Blackhawk hockey.
So we got the first main games. We only have two that we're really talking about this week, right? It's Florida.
That is correct. Your weekend package.
Weekend package. First game started out absolutely great. Because as we talked about a little bit at the tail end of last week, it was a very special game for Hockey Princess in particular, and crusty old guy a little bit, but mainly the hockey. Yeah. For those who don't know, before Kaner was a man by the name of Tomo Ruutu. He was drafted in 2001, many moons ago. I believe began playing for the Blackhawks in the 03-04 season.
Could
or
be.
Like maybe tail
or
end
it's the next one of the two.
And Hockey Princess fell in love. Absolutely. Like this, you never forget the first hockey player that you fall in love with. We have the time. I'm gonna monologue about Tomo Ruutu. He was number 15. He was great. Then got traded to Carolina, which is why we have a little bit of an allegiance, or at least I do, to the Carolina Hurricanes, because it's memories. It's where Tomo Ruutu was. The Carolina fan base was always very nice and really welcomed Tomo Ruutu. So we like them. Then Tomo Ruutu got traded to New Jersey, had a little bit of a professional tryout with Vancouver, and then retired. Fast forward to, he is the assistant coach of the Florida Panthers. So I go down for Florida Panther games and go, hello, it is me, the crazy fan from when I was very small. And that means everything to me. Because I have one game a year, as we talked about either last week or week before, because Florida and the Blackhawks are in two different conferences. So you only get to see them once a year. So you got to go down there and say, hello, I'm still here. Number one fan, Tomo Ruutu.
Yes. So he recognizes you. He knows you're there.
All that matters. It's all that matters. Don't need a puck. Don't need a stick. I just need you to know that, you were traded almost 16 years ago and you still got a number one fan in Chicago.
Oh, I think he knows.
So that game was already going to be great in my eyes. And then the first period happened and it became even greater. You want to talk about your opinions now that I've
my opinion? I can talk about my opinion all day. I could go on and on and on and on. My first question for Hockey Princess, though, is did we ever figure out who gave the stick to the kid?
What do you mean? I
There
think
was
it
a
was
player
Verhaeghe.
that was Verhaeghe.
I think it was Verhaeghe.
I think it was the new kid.
What new kid?
The kid who was playing his first game. No, it wasn't
Kid
him.
playing his first game?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Hold on. Let me see if I can't pull it up. Hold on a second. Okay.
We're holding.
Basically, we saw a player. He was like stretching, and one of the kids asked for like a signed puck. Hockey Princess seems to think it was Verhaeghe,
Thought so.
and I think it might have been Lockwood. Lockwood was playing in his first game. So it was really neat. Lockwood had his mom, I believe dad, and some other family members about 8 rows back behind us. And you would just see this young kid skating towards his bench and this huge smile, and he's smiling back up at his parents. It was the neatest thing. So either way, it was one of the two, but they came back, gave the kid a signed puck, and then went back, grabbed one of their sticks, and gave it to the kid.
You'll love to see it.
It's one of my favorite things in all of sports is watching the interaction between the player and the tiny tot and how good the players are with the young players and how they give them a little bit of attention. It's just the neatest. So
You'll love to see it, especially because I've been very fortunate
yes,
growing up. And like,
yes,
I was that tiny tot. And the early 2000s, like mid 2000s, before they got good, Blackhawk roster was very good to me as one of the only kids that was down on the ice.
yes, yes. You were well taken care of by pucks.
Absolutely. So. Matthew Barnaby, like, you never
Yep,
forget.
that was your first puck. Yep. So let's see. You want to talk about the game or should we just like ramble?
We can do both. I mean,
all right, let's talk about the game. Okay. Basically we had talked about last podcast about how they were spanked around and destroyed. Players were angry. There was disappointment after an 8-1 loss. And the Hawks came out on fire.
absolutely.
3 goals in the first period. Zaitsev scored, which is just, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
They came out flying, and controlled just about the whole first period. We had goals from Foligno and Taylor Hall to go with the Zaitsev goal. But each line was going nicely. And then came the second period, and really, even though the Blackhawks scored the only goal of that period, you could already tell that they were trying to hang on. The ice tilted a little bit, but we got another Connor Bedard goal.
Which was beautiful.
Yes, which was beautiful. That kid can shoot the puck. It is just impressive, and it's been impressive how the United Center, it almost gets a little quiet once he has the puck. Everybody realizes he's got the puck and everybody's waiting for something to happen. But basically, I mean, Florida still controlled most of the play through the second period. We'll talk about that problem after we talk about the New Jersey game.
Okay.
And then in the third period, they tried to hang on. Florida scored a couple goals and it got kind of interesting.
Which I feel
but
like
at the end of the day, they were able to shut them down. Mrazek with a really good game. How Peter Mrazek was not one of the 3 stars
is ridiculous.
It was just, that was just pretty nutty. Besides that, nobody really played bad. Again, Donato's not getting a lot of minutes, but he's very noticeable. He's very, very noticeable out there. Foligno is just, it's like he's reincarnated a little bit. I'm sure playing on the top line doesn't hurt him, but he looks like a heck of a hockey player. And the other huge thing you got in that game was Lucas Reichel finally got a point. So now all is right with the world. He's now on
Everybody
wing.
can back off of him.
No, nobody's going to back off with him. Looking through the stuff here, he only played 13 minutes. So, his ice time's a little dialed back. It's just going to take a little while. It's going to take a little while. Yeah. And as we talked about last podcast, it'd be nice if everybody gave him some rope. But yeah, one of the main takeaways from that game was Mrazek again. He was dynamite. So, and the building was rocking nicely. I'm trying to think of other players.
I've got a couple of things.
Well, then you get out there and you go.
Well, I think, yes, Florida scored a couple. Of course, it would have been nice to get a shutout. But I think, like, Florida's, even though the Blackhawks dominated the entire first period, you knew Florida wasn't going to wet the bed completely, or at least that's what I figured. I was kind of just waiting for them to at least have a bit of a push, because Florida, even with all of the roster changes that they had during the offseason, Florida's still a dynamite team. I mean, 19 on their team is still going to get it done, or he's at least going to push you enough to either get it done or wait for you to make a mistake. And then he's right there.
Yep.
Which is why, I mean, of course, Blackhawks have my allegiance, but Matthew Tkachuk is still like one of my favorite hockey players to watch that is not a Blackhawk. I think he's incredibly talented, and I just like the feistiness of him. I thought Seth Jones had a pretty good game.
Yep.
Yeah, but all around, it was solid. I've got my 3 stars. Okay. With an honorable mention, because everybody played so well, it was hard to pick just 3. Honorable mention to Foligno, because as Crusty Old Guy said, he looked dynamite. He was just wherever you needed him to be, he was already there. I feel like there's been plenty of times where, there's been missed opportunities, or kind of just like Blackhawks have been passing, and you're just wondering, like, where was that supposed to go? Like, what idea did you have in your head that you thought this was going to somebody? But everything, it was just going to him. It just was all working for him during that game. 3rd star to Wyatt Kaiser, just because I thought he had a great game. I think Florida's, from a defenseman's perspective, I do think Florida's one of the tougher teams to play against, because even though they weren't giving like 100% during the first period, they're still gonna try. I mean, they're still a goal scoring machine. They didn't go to the finals for nothing. And I thought Kaiser played great. Mrazek is my number 2 star, because he deserves stars. It's ridiculous he was not the first star, because even though he let into, it could have been so much more, especially during the end of the 3rd period, where Florida really tried to make that extra push, with the 5-on-4 to then 6-on-5 sort of situation. I thought he played great. And the number 1 goes to Connor Bedard, because even though I've seen that goal hundreds of times on Instagram now, it's still so cool to watch. It's awesome. Oh my gosh, that kid is so amazing to watch.
And then the other guy who had a really good game, he had a goal and 2 assists, was Kerr again.
Yeah.
So Kurashev's showing that he kind
does
of
well
belongs.
on the top line with Connor.
Yep. It's very helpful to be on the line with him. And yeah, you won't hear me talk about Seth Jones too much. I believe he's been rock solid all year. He's kind of the guy that everybody likes to complain about because of his contract. because he's going to be here long term. It was the last ditch effort of, Stan trying to
Oh, we
recapture
said his
some
name.
glory. Huh?
We
I
said
don't play that game where I can't say his name. He was a general manager of cup teams. I mean, geez, you could take away some of the stuff from the guy, but I don't need to go mental and say I can't name his name. My
I know we
goodness.
just haven't ever named
And
him.
these same people who are saying that now will say Corey Perry all the time and they love him. Come on. Stan's just Stan, and Stan struggled those last 5 years. So, but that's this here. He's playing more than fine. And Kor Krasinski played almost 19 minutes and still is, as we've talked about on the show basically every week. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some ugly.
But it's gonna
You know,
happen with him being as
yeah, it's
young as
gonna
he is,
happen.
and that's okay.
It is. He's just a baby. This probably is the best place for him to learn.
Mhm.
It definitely seems like he will stay up for the year. So, and again, they're sheltering him a tiny bit,
That's
but
okay.
but not a lot. I mean, he's still stuck in every situation. So, and he hasn't looked overwhelmed. He
Yeah.
makes mistakes, and any defenseman is going to. And a lot of them haven't ended up in the back of our net. So that's about I think that'd be it for me on the Florida game. You got any other tiny tidbits?
No, no. I'm re-looking at my notes. No. Um, you want to take over for New Jersey?
I want to take over. Do I have to?
Well, I listened to the radio for the second period. I watched the third. I really didn't see the first.
Okay.
So
Hold
I know
on. Let me
you were there, and
I
also
was there.
one of your favorites is on New Jersey. So I was gonna let you talk about the game and Dawson.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to pull up the game stats too, just so I can have those by me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, one of my, I'm trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I'm trying to play nice with Lucas Reichel and accept him for the player that he is, but the next pick after Lucas Reichel is one of the guys on New Jersey called Dawson Mercer, and he was pointless until the Devils played the Hawks, and then he scored the first goal. The Devils game, that first, I'd say 8 minutes, Hawks were all over them. They were flying. It looked like the Devils didn't have their legs and the Hawks did. And after the 8 minute mark, it went completely the other way.
Mm-hmm.
The Hawks struggled to keep up, and the Devils dictated play from there on out. I mean, New Jersey's a very good team, but New Jersey was also down their two top players. And they really
Jack
didn't.
and who's the other one that they're down?
Nico Hirscher.
Oh wow, yeah, they're
Yeah, so that's your two top centermen. So they all of a sudden just kind of, I won't say completely fell apart, but the ice was completely tilted. New Jersey just kind of took over the game. So then they, checking on here about the 13-minute mark, they scored their first one. And then about a minute later, they scored their second one. And that made it 2-1 after the first. And the second, there was no scoring, but I don't have the chances here. The chances had to be been 3-1 as far as the Devils over the Hawks. They controlled that whole period. And then started the third period. Was another goal let up. Possibility of this might have been some of the discussion when they had their closed door meeting. And then even then, yes.
I got a question.
Is that code for question?
Yeah, question without it trying to interrupt.
Oh, okay. Won't they see us doing this?
Um,
Okay.
what?
All right, go ahead.
Do
Question.
you feel like because Soderblom was in net for the Jersey game?
Yes.
Do you feel like most of the goals that he let up was it more on him or more like defensive situations that by the time it got to him, like he really didn't have a ton of control over? Because I feel like
Uh,
we've talked about
the
Brazic
first,
in net quite a bit, but haven't really analyzed
right.
Arvid in
The
net.
first goal, Mercer put it up top corner. He was basically left by himself to skate in the front. I really can't blame him for that one. The second one, I definitely can't. The third one, it was kind of a fluky goal. He's going back and forth, and then it kind of slides in 5-hole on him, if I'm not mistaken. So, and then the fourth one was an empty netter. Bloom hasn't looked as good as he's looked before. He looks a little bit, as we had talked about early on in the year, I compared him almost to Crow, where he seemed almost mechanical.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of flopping side to side. There seems to be a little bit more of that, pushing off maybe just a little too much, and then he's floundering to come back a little bit. So, but
You think it's more of a
it's
confidence thing?
not more of a. I don't think it's more of a confidence thing. I think it's just you get in a groove sometimes. Sometimes you don't,
Okay.
depending on how the chances go. As I said, that second period, I mean, it was all in their zone. I think that kind of stuff wears on you and you get a little bit
Yeah.
more jumpy also.
No, that makes complete sense.
So yeah, I don't think it was a terrible game. I've seen him play better this year. But yeah, it definitely wasn't on him. Um, you know, and then there was so Donato scored to make it 3-2 and looked like we might have a chance, but you could tell by the play that you
They
really
were just
didn't think that they were going to come back and tie it up. And then New Jersey got an empty netter with like a second to go. Um, but it's that third goal, and I don't know exactly how to breach this, but we've got a really, really young kid. But if anybody wants to watch that third goal, you are going to be asking yourself, what is 98 doing? Um, there was a complete lack of hustle going back. And then after the first save, he just turned and started going the other way. So crusty old guy's thought processes, I think that might have been addressed in said closed meeting. Um, you know, I didn't really notice it there. Then I watched the replay and really noticed it. It's very noticeable. He's a centerman, so he can't be turning and going for the red line. Patty Kane would occasionally do that, but still at the beginning of all their stuff, he wouldn't have been caught doing that either. So with everything being hush hush, I really enjoyed that they had a closed meeting and nothing came out about what it was about.
because it shouldn't
Uh,
be.
right. One thing was kind of let out on, which is also seems to be a problem with Bedard and some of the younger guys is, their shift length. So, but if you talk about the whole weekend games, the big problem area in both games was the second period.
I feel like
So
most game
I
problems are
believe,
the second period.
huh?
I feel like most games that we've had so far up until this point, I don't even know if I have an exception to that, like maybe the Toronto one, but it's been the second period. And I feel like even last year, well, okay, I feel like there's been a main difference where like last year it was, the opposing team scores 12 minutes into the game and then it just shifts and we're just counting down the minutes until the game ends. There's nothing left in the tank. Whereas I feel like now, they score and it'll dip a bit, but we're starting to have the ability to like dig ourselves out or like climb out of the hole, but it's still, the minute somebody else scores, like it just slides a little bit.
Yeah. But so I have a feeling that might have also been discussed. I have no insider information. I know that's surprising to most people, but
right. We have so much knowledge here on this show.
But I will give you a TikTok to make, or whatever you do with that stuff when you explain stuff, and you could probably explain that the second period is the long change. So, from what I'll explain it really quickly to all of your viewers out there, but basically their bench is the furthest away from their defensive end, if that makes any sense to anybody. As I said, we're going to give Hockey Princess an assignment, but I believe that was discussed because both second periods were dominated by either Florida or New Jersey, and their main problem being at some point in time, you have to at least be able to get it out of your own end, and you've got to get the puck deep without icing it, so your defensemen can get off and your forwards can get off.
Yeah.
If you don't get it deep enough, you might get a forward or two to change, but your defensemen are out there.
Right.
So that has become a major league problem. That they need to, in order to do that, you have to simplify your game, and you have to have the mindset is I could care less about scoring or creating chances. What we need to do now is just to get the puck to this position so we can switch all of our players.
Right.
And that has been a real struggle for them. And that's a mindset.
Okay.
That's a mindset of not trying to make plays, but just trying to do this little thing. And a lot of that is just a hunkering down. So I know that was a problem all weekend. I am sure they talked about that also.
Makes sense.
Because the New Jersey game didn't seem all that awful, but both games had that problem that were huge.
It was very noticeable.
Then you're asking your goaltender to go crazy for a period and then expect him to be fresh for the third, and that's a little difficult.
Yeah.
So they're trying. Yes, question.
No, I've got something I will say, because I think we
go ahead and go like this
at the beginning of talking about the New Jersey game. Alex Vlasic is back.
Yes.
Yes,
the pickle is back.
The pickle is back. As big supporters of the pickle, I just feel like we need to announce he is back.
Yes, the pickle is back. He looked fine. It wasn't quite as dominating, but again, they got kind of dominated. I believe Chinordi sat out that game, and Zaitsev was still in. I would assume Zaitsev's out come Thursday, but
do you have any crusty corners?
Crusty corner. I'm gonna leave Jamie out of it for right now. I'll save all of my Jamie angst for another time. I don't know. I really didn't think about it. So in my crusty corner, I will go with the forgotten Boris. Boris has been a forgotten man. I don't know if that continues. Boris Kachuk, I don't know what he did to get out of the lineup. And I don't know exactly why he's not back in. I do know Mac has been playing very well, and Mac has looked very good on the penalty kill. So, and with Taylor Hall back, there's one less spot for your bottom six players. Because Corey Perry has to play. He's so instrumental. He
veteran presence.
He's really teaching these kids something. There's people falling in love with him left and right, but I am not one of them.
Really teaching him how to stand by himself during the national anthem.
Yes. But so I guess in my corners, I'm wondering when he gets another chance. I don't know when that would be. I can't see why Mac would be sitting, but again, Boris has shown that he's a very good penalty killer too. So I guess my where is Boris is in my corner right now.
Makes sense.
And yeah, I don't have a lot of angst with the team. As I said, their second periods have been a little rough. New Jersey's just a better team than them.
Yeah.
But it was a decent effort all weekend.
That's
A
what
lot
matters.
of things that were
Literally,
shiny.
we care about the effort here.
Yeah, we care about the effort. And again, as we mentioned battles, this team should be able to win battles. They might be beaten on skill. People might skate right past them. People might dominate like, New Jersey did, just weaving in and out. That's fine. But as far as one-on-one puck battles, I mean, they should be able to hold their own, and that's where I'll be calling them out if that's not the case. So, and now they've got a wacky part of the schedule. They don't play again until Thursday.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on.
Weird.
It's very weird. So I don't know if you've got anything else from the game.
No, not really. So I think we're good. This is oh no, we're at our normal.
Oh geez, we're at wrap it up time? Honey, we're at
All
wrap it
right.
up time. Huh?
All right, folks, don't forget to click that like and subscribe button on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, however you listen. And if this video works out, subscribe on YouTube because we should have videos.
Can we have them write us a review?
You can write us a review.
Write us a review. I'd like somebody to do that.
Let us know what you think about our ramblings. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to be on an episode, then send us a message on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, or email, or you can comment on our YouTube video being like, hey, I want to be on, or I have questions, or I don't understand this. We will happily ramble about anything hockey related, really.
True story.
Absolutely. And then that is it. Like I said, this is going to be a double feature this week because I will be in Michigan for the Ann Arbor, or I will be in Ann Arbor for the Michigan versus Minnesota. So I will talk at you guys then.